everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cryptocurrent. Your host here, Richard Carthon. And today I got a special guest working out in Cryptoland, all the way out in Switzerland, working on a really extremely cool project, Streamr Network. We have Henri. How are you doing today?
Hey, thanks, Richard, for having me on. I'm doing excellent. Happy to be on the show.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited for you to be here, excited to learn more about all the things that you have going on. Before we do, I want to learn more about you. Can you give us some background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hey, I'm Henri. I'm co-founder and CEO of Streamr. I have a tech background, so I used to study computer science, went on to becoming a professional software engineer. I used to work in e-commerce, but then somehow I got into algorithmic trading, which was kind of my first touch point with kind of data and real-time data and how to kind of extract value out of that. Did that for a while, actually, and then started building some IoT type of big data infrastructure, still in the cloud space at the time, but then started thinking more about like open source and decentralization, and Ethereum blockchain had launched, and kind of all these new ideas were coming up. And then I started to think about how the kind of data economies that we're going to have in the future and data infrastructures that we're going to have in the future, how those should look like, and decided to kind of go all in on that stuff. So I guess I'll get to talk about that a bit more detail later on. But yeah, basically, I'm just been writing code since I was 6 years old. So I'm a nerdy boy turned into software professional, turned into serial entrepreneur and CEO.
I mean, sounds like a very exciting background. I mean, a great entrepreneurial route. And on that lens, you know, you started talking about how you got into algorithmic trading and some of the ways that you really started getting into data sets. Was that when you started to get into that, is that when you first learned about crypto? Or tell us about how you first learned about the space and then decided, okay, this is something worth spending some of my attention on?
Yeah, it was in the kind of start of the trading days, and especially the first company that I started with my co-founder Nikke, who is also a co-founder in Streamr. So we've been working together for like 10 years, and like we were back in the day, we were trading just normal stocks on the stock market, right? And Nikke was raving about this new thing called Bitcoin, and nobody really knew what it was. This was like in 2010 or something like this, and Bitcoin was like $1, $2, I think, market price.
Wow.
And it was like, we kind of dismissed it as a joke at the time. Yeah. Didn't go in, didn't start trading or anything. We were just kind of quite focused on what we were doing in the algorithmic trading of stocks on the more traditional markets. And we like completely missed out on the early days of crypto. But then kind of same kind of phenomenon happened again when Ethereum launched in 2015. And then it was like starting to seem a bit more serious, you know. And when we came to 2016, 2017, the first ICOs were starting to pop up. There was like actual killer use case for Ethereum. And at the time we were also like trying to build data infrastructure, but not in the decentralized space, but rather in like cloud era. But there was always the problem that, you know, no one wanted to build any critical solutions on top of some product made by a little startup somewhere, right? You know, if you talk to a big enterprise, they're like, who are you guys? We're not going to build anything serious because, it doesn't have that kind of credibility. But then the idea of decentralization and trustlessness and open source and all of that started to click very nicely in the sense that, okay, we can actually build something, but running it doesn't rely on us. So anyone who uses it doesn't need to trust us to keep it up and running in any way. They can kind of take the driver's seat in the solution and participate themselves. And that fit really well with the idea of the real-time data infrastructure that we were planning to build and stuff that would come on top, such as data marketplaces and data crowdsourcing and this kind of phenomena that didn't really exist yet at the time, and would also not be possible to build as a small startup because of the credibility issue, but would also not be possible to build as one of the big five companies. Google or Amazon, they would have a hard time building this kind of infrastructure, or for example, data marketplace, because people are already kind of concerned about the power that these companies have and the amount of data that they control and collect of companies and processes and individuals everywhere. So it's also a challenge for them to build something big like that. So really the kind of open, decentralized way was the way to go. And also the space was seemingly starting to solve some of the fundraising problem as well, in the form of the ICO, that you could actually make an open source project that can launch a token and get funded by those means. So it just totally clicked with our idea, and we went for it, and we did an ICO in 2017 and raised 30 million for the project. So we started in 2017. And we had made a roadmap of 5 years. So what we're building is kind of it's a big project. I'm not going to lie. It's a challenging thing, and we knew that this is going to take time. It's not like you copy paste something that already exists to make a new Uniswap clone DEX on a new sidechain or whatever. It's like getting back to the fundamentals and building stuff that doesn't exist from scratch.
Which is a huge undertaking. And real quick, I want to dive into that. So now you got into crypto and you learn about it, and you learn about these data sets, and you're like, okay, how do we get this on a level playing field? How do we get it decentralized in a trustless way? And so I guess that is where the concept of Streamr came from, at which point, 2017, you had your ICO, was able to raise $30 million. But with that money and what you're trying to build, can you just simply put like, what is Streamr? And I know that you're working with data, but what are you ultimately trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So it's ultimately like a peer-to-peer network for sharing real-time data streams. Traditionally, this kind of thing is like available on, let's say, a cloud stack. Like somebody's publishing data and some other people are subscribing to data. And there's usually like a topic that identifies the stream of data that we're talking about. So usually there's like a single machine, everybody connects to that, and then the data flows. And the typical things that you'd implement on this kind of stuff is anything from there's a very broad range. It's like a basic primitive. So anything from a chat application to some real-time presence things, like 145 people are looking at this thing right now, all the way to whole big data ecosystems where IoT devices in a smart city are communicating with each other. All of these need this kind of messaging infrastructure that is either based on a centralized thing, and then you have to trust it, and it doesn't really scale because everyone's connecting to the same point. Or you create a decentralized version where everyone is just like a peer on a peer-to-peer network, and they're kind of both consuming and contributing resources to the network at the same time. So if you're a subscriber, you want some kind of data from the network. You're publishing some interesting information, like your predictions about the crypto markets for the next 60 seconds or whatever. I'm interested in that, so I can go in, I can subscribe to it. But while I'm receiving it, I'm also relaying it on to other subscribers. So this way we can achieve scalability in the network. So everyone's kind of pitching in to make it scale. So you can have like broadcast systems where someone who's publishing data, it can be distributed to millions of people very quickly and without any central point. So nobody kind of has control over the network, or no one can disrupt it. You don't need to trust anyone to make these kind of things happen. So it's like a building block for future future applications and data economies. So
right. So just so I can kind of translate it to some of the newbies out there, the way that I see it is you're getting all these data sets and they all kind of speak a little bit differently. And what you're able to do is to put them all in like a comprehensive language that they all can then communicate back and share the information in a decentralized way, so that all the information is kind of being transferred in a pretty seamless way.
Kind of. It's you can think of it as something like WhatsApp, but for machines, first of all, applications and machines. It's not like people, typing text, but usually machines and machine data. The other difference to WhatsApp is that, it's not a centralized thing. It's like a co-owned thing. You remember back in the day, we used to have BitTorrent that everyone was using to share files.
Right.
So Streamr is maybe something like BitTorrent, but not for static files, not for like a file that doesn't change, but rather a stream of data that is constantly changing, right? So that kind of thing, distributing and sharing streams of data. Like, let's say there's an IoT sensor, a temperature sensor somewhere on my roof, and it's like every 15 seconds producing a new reading. And so I can kind of broadcast that onto the network, and anyone who's interested in that data can get it from the network. So there's the transport layer, which is the Streamr network, but then all kind of things can be built on top. For example, a data marketplace, so that if my data is valuable to you, I can put a price tag on it, right? And you can go in and buy access to my data. Let's say it's like $10 per day to view the data that I'm producing. So you can do that completely trustlessly. And expanding on that idea, you can also have this kind of data crowd selling. So if my data alone is not interesting, but the data of 100,000 people like me are interesting. Let's say everyone uses a certain app or has a certain kind of phone, or I don't know, drives a Tesla or whatever, connected car kind of thing. Then together, the data of all these 100,000 people, that's actually interesting and valuable. So you can create a structure where all these people come together and pool their data into a single kind of stream or data product. And then when someone buys it, then the revenue gets shared with everyone who contributed data. So you can kind of have this earn by providing data kind of mechanisms, but everything is built on top of the underlying infrastructure that does the actual message transport.
Right.
So it's a layered thing.
So what you just kind of described, the first two things that came to mind was like, okay, we're already seeing that kind of challenge where people don't want either their data shared, or they want it to be like something that they have the option to opt into. Like Apple recently put it to where with certain data that's being shared, you have to opt into letting that happen. But the difference here is that like if you were to opt into letting your data be shared, you actually will be compensated for however it is being used in a greater way. And like I think that is a lot more appetizing to people than everyone just mindlessly getting their data taken anyway and then not really being compensated for it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the use cases, and there's countless. It's such a basic primitive that there's countless use cases. It's kind of like, what's the use case of blockchain or smart contracts, right? It has
so many.
and you have to then the killer apps are eventually discovered, and this kind of data selling, data marketplaces, data crowdsourcing, it's one killer app, but it's a building block for future applications and the Web 3.0, the decentralized web.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, so many different use cases. It sounds like a lot is in the pipeline. One of the things that we kind of talked about before coming on the show is that I believe you have something very interesting where you have a potential new DAO coming up, a potential spinoff. Do you want to kind of talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's actually related to the data crowdsourcing idea that I was describing. So there's the transport layer, which is the Streamr network, and then we've built kind of like a product on top that's called data unions, and that's exactly like a technical framework for doing that kind of data crowdsourcing thing that I was describing. So 100,000 people combining forces to earn on their data. So this product is now being spun off to a kind of separate project called the Data Union DAO, which will have its own token called Union.
And real quick, can you explain what a DAO is for everyone?
Oh, right. Okay. So DAO is basically like a governance method where people vote with tokens. So it's a way to make decisions and organize around a project or like govern a technology such as the Data Union's framework. So basically everyone who's building on the technology, everyone who's kind of interested in having a stake in the ecosystem, they can join in to influence where that is going. And also on the Streamr project, the decisions are made in that same way. So everyone's kind of able to participate and make decisions about how it works.
Which is extremely cool. Like, and I just want to take a second on this really quickly. Like, imagine you basically becoming part of this company and truly having a voice, truly having a way to vote on the future of where a company is headed. So, in a lot of companies, there's, in the US, for example, if you have like an LLC, you have the centralized, you usually need like a 51% majority rule. But if you have board members and all this other kind of stuff, it still could be very hard to decide where the direction of a company is. But when you have a DAO, and it's a lot more decentralized and you have a lot of different viewpoints from the people that are within it, it allows for a lot more of decisions truly being made by the people within the group to drive decisions forward.
It's like a direct democracy, which we have here in Switzerland. I'm a Finnish guy, and I'm kind of excited about how the governance model of Switzerland works. Like people go and vote directly, and it's exactly the same in the DAO, that people can go and vote directly to make those decisions. And when you're building something like Streamr or the Data Union's framework, it's like fully dependent on the ecosystem and the builders in that ecosystem, because they are actually like why we're doing it, right? For someone to use it and for someone to find value in it and to create new businesses or create new value. So it's excellent that there's like models where these stakeholders can directly participate and contribute, and you can kind of tap into the wisdom of the crowd instead of like being a dictator in a country and saying, okay, now we do this, you know. So
which is really cool.
Exciting.
Yeah. And I'm glad that that's coming up, and for everyone that's listening and really enjoying what Streamr and everything the Streamr network's got going on, that the Union DAO, make sure you go look and check that out. But Henri, I know that you have another major milestone that's coming up pretty soon. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, this summer, late summer, we're going to reach one of the biggest milestones on the Streamr network. Marks the decentralization of the network, and means that anyone can run a node in the peer-to-peer network, whereas so far, if you've been on Streamr and have an application that's sharing data, you'd have to rely on nodes that are run and hosted by us, right? But once it's decentralized, nothing can stop it. It becomes unstoppable. It will be therefore good. There's no way back. And this has always, of course, been the goal, but it's been kind of tricky to get there. And not only that, but once we start working on the next. Once we reach this milestone, then the next step is to add in token incentives. So it's a kind of mining process. So you can join in, run a node, contribute bandwidth to the network, and help relay those streams of data in the network and earn tokens by doing so. So it's very different from the kind of mining that you have in proof of work networks like Bitcoin or Ethereum, where you're basically just burning energy to secure the network. But on Streamr, you're contributing useful resources, bandwidth, right, to the network to create the kind of service that it provides, which is data transport.
Which is very
yeah.
No, I mean, which is really important and needed, a big milestone, as you said. And I'm sure a lot of time and effort, energy has gone into building that out.
Yeah, and lots of people have signed up for running a node in the test nets. There's I think 3,200 people so far who've said, hey, yes, I want to run a node in the test nets and try it out. So that's coming this summer, and anyone can still join in. There's no size limit. In fact, we'd like to have as big as a testnet as possible to kind of prove the scalability of the network. There's also 2 million data tokens up for grabs that amounts to around $300,000 at today's prices for those who participate in those test nets. So there's also tokens to be earned in exchange for helping us out.
Awesome. So for everyone listening, if you're interested in that, make sure you go participate, make sure you go earn some of that money and help build out this amazing network. But Henri, you've been in this space for a while, and I believe that Streamr is being built on top of the Ethereum ecosystem. And as you know, one of the challenges with this ecosystem has been scalability. So can we kind of just talk about like where you see the future of scalability on the Ethereum blockchain headed?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely headed in a brighter direction. Like as we've seen with the sky high gas prices and everything, it's kind of been reduced down to almost unusable. From our point of view, it's not a big blocker because we only rely on the Ethereum chain for certain things that are not that frequent. So, for example, the data itself, of course, doesn't go there. It stays on the Streamr network. So we kind of achieve scalability in our own use case. But if you think about things like micropayments and having like these data economies emerge that I was talking about, that does require a bit more scalability from the actual on-chain side of things. And currently what we're doing is like looking into side chains. So we have much of the data union stuff on XDAI chain. We're looking at the Polygon chain as well to kind of expand the reach there. But of course, like the next step is the L2. So, stuff like Arbitrum or Optimism are just around the corner, and it will be very interesting to see how they affect things. And we'll be keeping a very keen eye on those ones, and eventually Ethereum 2.0. But I think like we've been like in the Ethereum space since the early days, 2016, when we started to look in this direction, and it doesn't seem like it's definitely here for good. I'm not any kind of maximalist, but very comfortable in the Ethereum space and very confident on the kind of network effects and the capability of innovation that exists in that space. But at the heart of things, Streamr itself is kind of a blockchain agnostic technology. So who knows what the future will bring? But currently, the pace of innovation and progress especially in the Ethereum scaling space, is just mind-blowing. You can already bridge tokens to the different side chains very easily. And yeah, as always with crypto, the usability is one main blocker, I think, for mass adoption of new kind of things. But there's been plenty of improvement also in that area. So overall, I'm very optimistic, very bullish about the overall space, and looking forward to what the future will hold.
Oh, definitely. I very much believe in the Ethereum ecosystem, and it has a lot of legs, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon either. If you follow where a lot of developments being built, ETH is still leading the charge. So that alone speaks volumes. But, as we kind of wrap up, I always like to finish with two fun questions. One of them being, if you could take all the knowledge you have right now and go back and impart wisdom to yourself when you first got started in the crypto space, what are some things that you would tell yourself? 2 or 3 things.
Wow, what a good question. I wasn't expecting that. Well, maybe like, okay, thing number 1. Things are crappier than what you expect them to be. Like when you're early into something, like there's no docs, there's no tools, there's bugs everywhere. It's just an uphill battle when you're trying to build something. But that's not a problem, because it tells that you're in the right place at the right time. Like when everything is ready and polished, you're already late, right? Yeah. Everyone else is there already. Like everything is final and polished, and you don't even have a say into anything. So you have to learn a new technology or try things out, or just endure that slight crappiness that exists everywhere in the crypto space, especially since okay, we've come a long way, right? But it's
Right.
always there, this immaturity of everything, and it's there for a good reason, and we should kind of appreciate it in some way, because it, like I said, it's a sign that we are here at the right time. We're building something new, so maybe that's one thing that I'd like myself to realize early on, because it would just make my journey a little bit more easier, and not stressing out. Why is everything so kind of immature, and it's hard to build things and so on. But then you just factor it in and appreciate it. Like, okay, this is supposed to be this way because it's early, and so
that's a really good perspective. Honestly, it is an extremely good perspective, and is, as much as things have gotten better, we're still extremely early. We're still so early in this. Yes. There's still polish being put on it, but it's still got a long way to go. But I really, really enjoy that perspective. And for everyone listening, make sure you go back and listen to it again. Like, it's okay if you're uncomfortable as you get into a new thing. That means you're in at the right time. Because if you can figure this out before everyone else does, you're miles ahead of everyone. So definitely keep that perspective. But Henri, man, I really do appreciate all your time, all the wisdom and knowledge you've dropped on us, telling us about Streamr. But what is a final thought that you want to leave with all the listeners here today?
Yeah, I guess maybe continuing on the last thought, like stay curious, believe in the decentralization. Like, just take the blue pill instead of the red pill, enter the matrix and see the future with your own eyes, and get involved. There's so many ways. Like, even if you're not a developer, you can participate in governance, contribute your insights and wisdom. Or if you're a developer, learn stuff, build things, just the sky is the limit. And maybe also the crappiness of immature technology is a limit, but as we just established, enjoy it instead of kind of feeling the pain of that.
Absolutely. I think that's an incredible final thought, and I appreciate you sharing that information and all information you share with us. So what are ways that people can learn more about Streamr and also learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, I guess the best way is to start from our project website, which is streamr.network. And Streamr is spelled without the last E in there, so Streamr. Get that right?
Yes.
Back in the early days, we were so poor before the ICO era. We couldn't afford the domain name with the E in there, so we had to kind of modernize it by dropping the E in there and make it just Streamr. But it kind of stuck, right? So that's the story there. We also have a Discord where the community joins and can ask questions, and the team members are there. So you'll find a link to that on the website as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that information. Thank you for spending time with us. And of course, for everyone listening, stay cryptocurrent. Today's podcast is brought to you by Streamr, the decentralized platform for real-time data. You can distribute unstoppable data streams over a global open-source peer-to-peer network and help build out the new data economy. You can unlock the value of user data without setting up your own custom infrastructure. Streamr also uses smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain to secure payments and data permissions. For more information, please go to streamr.network. That is STREAMR.network. And now for today's episode.